Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're tackling something pretty huge. We're literally shifting the paradigm of how we view work. For a lot of people, work is just a daily grind. It's a chore you do just to survive. But what if we flip that? What if we looked at work as a holistic architectural blueprint for building a genuinely fulfilling career? Because that's exactly the framework we're going to break down today, specifically looking at it through the lens of the incredibly dynamic landscape of modern India. Okay, let's dive into this. Building a career is, quite honestly, a lot like constructing a house. And any stable house? Well, it needs load-bearing pillars. In our blueprint here, you can see three foundational columns. First up is mindset, so your internal philosophy of work. Second is the ecosystem, which is the rich societal and traditional context around you. And third is practice, your tactical skills, your ethics, and those day-to-day operations. So here's how we're going to unroll this blueprint today. First, Dimension 1, mindset. 2, Dimension 2, the ecosystem. 3, equity and the double burden. 4, Dimension 3, practice. And finally, 5, synthesizing the modern professional. Let's kick things off with Dimension 1, mindset and philosophy. Before we look outward at the job market, we really have to lay the foundation by looking inward. Now think about this famous anecdote. 3 people are doing the exact same physical task. They're just hitting a stone with a hammer. You ask the first one what they're doing and they say, "I'm breaking rocks." The second one says, "I'm making a living." But the third person? They pause, look up, and say, "I am carving a statue." It's incredible, right? 3 people, identical physical actions, but entirely different psychological realities. And we can actually map this psychological evolution using what's called the stonecutter's matrix. Down at the baseline, you've got a job. Your focus here is purely the immediate task, breaking rocks just to survive. Step up a level and you have a livelihood, where the focus shifts to securing an income for your family. A career moves that motivation into a trajectory of personal growth and advancement. But the ultimate pinnacle, that is your calling or dharma. When you reach that point, you're driven by an inner direction. Your focus is on the ultimate vision, carving that statue, and that's what leads to deep, profound satisfaction. When we manage to operate near that level of dharma, work transforms into something so much greater. True, meaningful daily action actually becomes a catalyst for your personal identity and self-esteem. But, and this is a big but, it only works if it hits 4 specific marks. It has to be useful to society. It needs to be performed responsibly and, frankly, enjoyable. It should showcase your unique skills and creativity. And finally, it has to position you to build positive professional relationships. Let's move to Dimension 2, the Indian ecosystem. We're stepping out of our internal mindset and into the broader neighborhood where our career actually lives. To really understand the Indian ecosystem, we have to grasp the sheer, massive scale of its agrarian roots. Just let this statistic sink in for a second. For almost 70% of the population living in rural areas, agriculture isn't just an industry. It is the absolute primary source of employment and survival. That is a huge part of the workforce. And this foundation is incredibly diverse. We're talking everything from marginal farming, where families are working tiny plots that barely cover their own meals, to the extensive coastal livelihoods like traditional fishing. Yet out of this exact same ecosystem, India manages to emerge as an absolute powerhouse. We're exporting vital cash crops like tea and coffee and securing global leadership as a top producer of goods like cashew nuts, milk, ginger, and turmeric. It's quite a range. But hey, the ecosystem isn't solely agricultural. It is profoundly artisanal, too. If we pan across the map of the country's heritage, we see an amazing wealth of handcrafted knowledge. From Warli painting in Maharashtra to Chanapatna dolls in Karnataka and bamboo craft over in Assam. These aren't just pretty products. They are tightly guarded manufacturing secrets and complex indigenous knowledge systems that have been passed down through generations within very specific communities. However, we have to acknowledge that these artisans are facing some pretty devastating modern threats right now. The huge influx of cheap, mass-produced goods, along with environmental degradation, is literally threatening to wipe out centuries of heritage. But there's a really fierce revival pushing back against this. By using eco-friendly raw materials, design innovations, and absolutely crucial intellectual property rights protection, there's this powerful effort to preserve this cultural diversity without forcing people back into rigid caste-based divisions of labor. Now, let's talk about equity and the double burden, because a healthy career landscape absolutely has to address these dynamics. First off, we need to clarify a vital difference. Sex refers to a biological categorization. Gender, on the other hand, is a social identity. It's constructed entirely by cultural practices and expectations. And the modern definition of the Indian workforce is thankfully expanding to reflect this reality. A major milestone here was the Supreme Court of India's formal landmark recognition of transgender people as a third gender in the modern workforce. Now, when we talk about equity, we absolutely have to talk about the double burden that is placed disproportionately on women. Just look at these scales. On one side, you have paid workforce participation. On the other side, the massive, often invisible weight of unpaid household labor, domestic chores, and primary caregiving. Women are under severe stress because these household responsibilities almost never decrease when they enter the paid workforce. The reality is, true empowerment is basically impossible until we recognize and value this domestic work as a highly productive economic activity. Fortunately, we are witnessing a crucial institutional paradigm shift here. The approach has evolved from just basic constitutional welfare rights, merely forbidding discrimination, to enforcing protective legislation that guarantees equality of opportunity. And now we're moving toward full-scale development. This is backed by really essential social support frameworks like the Maternity Benefit Act, which directly supports health and childcare. Moving right along to Dimension 3, practice and excellence. Let's look at the day-to-day operations that keep our career structure standing. At the very core of our daily practice, there has to be an unwavering belief in the dignity of labor. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that all humans are equal in dignity and that every single share of work betters society. Mahatma Gandhi demonstrated this so powerfully. He would sweep and clean his own ashram in Wardha, steadfastly refusing to treat any job as menial. It's an incredibly inspiring standard. And from that sense of profound dignity, we derive 6 core ethical values. Seriously, whether you're a high-level executive or an artisan, your daily practice has to be grounded in service and social justice. You must respect the dignity of all persons, prioritize human relationships, and maintain uncompromising integrity and competence. These aren't optional, they're essential. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when we apply those ethics to our physical workspaces. We create a blueprint for a genuinely healthy environment. True occupational health treats employees like valuable assets, not expendable resources. This takes 2 layers. Layer 1 is proper physical ergonomics, meaning we adapt the equipment to the human, not the other way around. Layer 2 is psychological, a high quality of work life, or QWL. That means fair pay, low stress, and participative decision-making. But listen, a good chair and fair pay just aren't enough. You need the tactical skills to navigate the modern workplace. Beyond your technical expertise, your career progression relies heavily on interpersonal and cognitive adaptability. We're talking about essential soft skills here: working productively, learning effectively so you don't fall behind, communicating clearly, cooperating to resolve conflicts, and thinking critically. In today's market, these soft skills are every bit as load-bearing as your technical know-how. Which brings us to our final section, synthesizing the modern professional. Let's step back and look at the completed house we've just built. Let's bring this all together. As you'll see in this diagram, whether you're a traditional artisan working with bamboo and awesome, or a corporate employee sitting in a high-rise in Mumbai, the foundational blueprint of a fulfilling livelihood remains exactly the same. True, meaningful work only happens right there in the middle, at the exact intersection of an inner calling, an ecosystem anchored in equity, and a daily practice rooted in ergonomic health. So, what does this all mean for you? Well, it brings us to the ultimate question I want to leave you with today. Looking at your own professional life, where do you currently sit within these intersecting circles? Are you heavily invested in your skills, but maybe lacking that inner calling? Or perhaps you have the passion, but you really need to figure out how to navigate the societal ecosystem better. Take a moment today to evaluate your own career blueprint. Decide which load-bearing pillar you need to strengthen next, and take that actionable step toward true professional actualization. Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and keep building.